Hello and welcome to the O&M Stockroom. We're your hosts, Brian McGarry.
And Ken O'Malley.
Tonight is episode 18 of Complimentary Cinema. If you're new to the channel, Complimentary Cinema is a program where we review and discuss films you can watch for free that are available on YouTube. Be warned, we discuss these films in detail, so consider this a full spoiler alert. So, Ken, tonight it was your turn to pick the film.
Yes.
And what did we pick?
We picked the 1996 film Down Periscope.
I'm just so glad that we did, too, because I was a huge fan of Frasier when I was a kid. Watched it all through, like junior high, high school, even into my early adulthood. And, big fan of Kelsey Grammer, just loved his work, loved his comedic stylings. And, I didn't get any of that in this film.
No.
I got none of the things I was looking for. But there we go.
That's a great way to start.
So it's a Navy slapstick comedy film, kind of done in not quite the absurdist level of like say Hot Shots, but in the ballpark, in the umbrella of absurdist slapsticky comedy. Let's see. So 96. So our cast of characters real quick. This actually has a surprisingly nice cast of actors.
Yeah, I mentioned while we were watching this, everyone in this movie was in something better at some point.
All of them were in something better. If they did one other movie, they were in another better movie. So, for example, you have Lauren Holly playing Emily. Lauren Holly, well, first I guess I should say Kelsey Grammer. So he plays the star of this piece of crap. Tom Dodge, the naval leader in this case. Also, from Frasier, he has a little bit role in a Star Trek The Next Generation episode where he plays Captain Morgan Bateson of the, I can't remember the name of the ship off the top of my head, but it's like from a 5th season Next Gen episode where the Enterprise gets caught in a temporal causality loop. Oh yes, the Bozeman, a Soyuz class Federation starship, also was caught in a causality loop. And they finally break the loop, but it's been 80 years that the Bozeman has been caught. So when you see Kelsey Grammer on the view screen, he's wearing a original series era movie era uniform, and that was just kind of a neat little throwback. That was probably the only time that Kelsey Grammer should have captained a ship. This being the time that he shouldn't have. But moving on. So then we also have Lauren Holly as Emily. Lauren Holly is probably best known as Miss Swanson or Miss Samsonite from Dumb and Dumber. And you have Rob Schneider playing Marty Pascal. Now the thing with Rob Schneider is he peaked in the early 90s on Saturday Night Live, and that's where he should have stayed. Am I alone here, or do we?
No, I'm not a big Rob Schneider fan, but he has been in better movies.
I would believe that. Also, we have the late great Harry Dean Stanton as Howard. Now, Harry Dean Stanton does not need any introduction. Well, he shouldn't. He's in Repo Man. He's in Alien. He's just in tons and tons of awesome movies. And he's been in a lot of bad movies too. But he's great at being like an old, kind of grizzled blue-collar bastard, and I love him for it. He plays the exact same character in every movie, or just about. Let's see. Then you have Bruce Dern playing Admiral Graham. Bruce Dern was in, among other things, oh man, what was it? The one with Tom Hanks. So it's like from 89. I know that really narrows it down.
What is it about?
When they have the neighbors that are really creepy. And like Tom Hanks takes a week off of work, and his wife is Princess Leia, and they want to go. She wants him to take everyone to the cabin, and
I have no idea.
It's like God, it's on the tip of my mind. But anyway,
movie
that was a good movie. Bruce Dern's in that. Bruce Dern is also the father of Laura Dern from Jurassic Park and Blue Velvet and other great films. And then you have, I guess the last really notable one is Rip Torn, who plays Admiral Winslow. Oh, and William H. Macy as where the hell is he? As Captain Knox. So yeah, I mean, you've got like William H. Macy, Rip Torn, Bruce Dern, Harry Dean Stanton. You know, you got some heavyweights here. How in the hell? Oh, and you also have Patton Oswalt,
who's basically like just a guy in the background.
He's just a guy in the background. Like, this is one of the probably the earliest things he ever did. When I saw him, I actually cheered with happiness because I love Patton Oswalt. I mean, he's just a lovable little guy, you know.
Yeah.
Very funny. You know, barbed tongued. So anyway, would you like to give us the rundown of this film?
By all accounts, on the surface, this is kind of like an ensemble cast. You know, it seems like they have a lot of things going for them. As far as, you know, they have a lot of decent actors, and I really enjoyed in this movie. They have like a lot of they have ships, they have real ships.
Actual naval vessels are in this.
They have archival footage of ships.
Actual archival footage of actual ships.
They have models.
Physical models.
So anyway, that's all. I really enjoyed all that.
From that perspective, that definitely ticks off a lot of boxes for me because I'm so burnt out on crappy, shitty CGI. So it's nice to see actual hardware, as you said, and it's nice to see just physical material being photographed.
So anyway,
we need more of that. So
this movie is about Kelsey Grammer. He's kind of like he's in line for promotion to being a captain, but he's at the end of the amount of time he can be considered for a promotion.
He's about at the end of his window.
So, you know, either he's going to get his own ship or he's going to get demoted, and he's going to be on a desk job for the rest of his career. And it seems like he doesn't take things super seriously. The first thing he does is he's playing golf off of a submarine, you know, shooting onto land from a submarine. And the admirals or whatever are just discussing whether they're going to give him a command post or not. So it turns out they are going to give him a command post, but it's kind of like a joke, or they're kind of setting him up to fail. So they're going to do a war game where he takes an old diesel submarine and tries to infiltrate the American harbors. Basically, they got like a tip that Russians are selling old diesel submarines to other countries they might use for terrorism or who knows what. So they're going to see if a diesel submarine can infiltrate the American ports. So that's kind of the main setup for the movie. And the comedy comes from the fact that the crew he is given is a complete disaster, and none of them look remotely seaworthy at all. And the captain obviously is he's a little screwy. So and then the ship they give him is an old diesel World War II submarine.
A rust bucket at that. I mean, the thing looks like if you set your foot on the deck, it's going to go through the deck and maybe even through the bottom of the boat.
Yep. At one point, someone says it's being held together by the bird droppings.
And, you know, from all appearances, I'd believe that.
Yep.
So, and he has a crew to match, rather, and a captain to match. So, you know... So, you know, so
let's talk about the admirals. Because there's kind of a situation where there's the one admiral, it's kind of, he wants him to get promoted, but he's kind of neutral about it.
Rip Torn, Admiral Winslow.
And then the other one really got it out for him.
Bruce Dern, Admiral Graham. Admiral Graham just hates Kelsey Grammer's Tom Dodge character. Just hates the guy.
He thinks he's irresponsible and not fit for command,
and just like an overall a screw up. And in their first Admiralty meeting, they discuss the fact that Tom Dodge may or may not have a tattoo on his penis that says "Welcome aboard," and this comes up repeatedly throughout the film. So it's not like a throwaway joke and then you move on. They continually revisit this.
It is
like 4 times.
It is the source of what they expect as comedy, which in every case in this film is not.
So the admirals get into it a little bit, you know, like Rip Torn's more on the, you know, I think this guy could have something. Bruce Dern's admiral is, no, this guy's, he shouldn't be in, Yep. So they give him this chance to fail. But Rip Torn's Admiral Winslow basically says, hey, if you can make it to this port and blow up this dummy ship, we'll talk about actually giving you an actual command. So so they all show up to the ship and then they fix it up kind of.
Yeah, there's a lot of hijinks. It's basically just a lot of kind of stupid, someone gets knocked into the water, the electrician guy gets electrocuted, and
the fat guy's fat and eats a lot.
It's like all the lowest hanging fruits that you could pluck that are not juicy and funny.
So
and you could see all of the things that were supposed to be jokes a mile away.
So okay, so so taking the radio operator for instance, yeah, he electrocutes himself, right? So maybe one time that would be funny in a specific context, but he practically zaps himself every time he's touching wires, and of course, because it's an old ship, he's constantly touching loose wires. I don't see how that could possibly be, naval regulation friendly or not, but there's just loose wires all over this equipment.
Well, the payoff to that is that he electrocutes himself throughout the entire movie so that when he flips a switch at the end, he doesn't electrocute himself. And that's what's funny.
Oh, I was supposed to laugh then.
Yeah.
Okay. But I didn't though, Ken.
Right.
I didn't laugh at that.
That's all. The whole movie, everything is being rubbed in your nose about what the payoff's going to be at the end.
Yeah.
And then when it is, it's not funny.
You know what else I didn't laugh at this film? Rob Schneider's character as the XO Marty Paschal.
Yeah.
He basically just an angry little man just yelling at everybody all the time.
He's supposed to be like the extreme by the book, he does everything by regulation and he just yells at everyone all the time.
To the point that he's about to have blood vessels burst in his head. And I kind of realized we just kind of skipped over the rest of the plot synopsis.
We're just talking about, he's introduced then too. Yeah, that's okay.
What I will say, okay. So anyway,
we're just talking about themes. It's all good.
Themes. What's another theme? Oh yes. Then you have Lauren Holly as the token female on the entire sub, and she's really treated like a piece of meat.
Well, she's kind of fresh out of the academy, and so she doesn't have any real world experience, just a lot of simulator training. So she's not sure of herself, and then the situation with other people doesn't make her feel any more confident because, like you said, she's just, people keep setting her up for mishaps.
Mishaps. This entire film is a mishap.
The production of this film was a mishap.
So at the 16-minute mark, I checked the time and I groaned loudly. At 16 minutes, we must have been subjected to a bad joke or a little, quote unquote funny gimmick every 30 seconds, and not one of them landed a punch. And you even asked me then, like, are we going to find something to laugh at in this film? And no, we did not.
No. It never happened.
Before you even listen to the rest of our take on this film, this is not a funny comedy by any stretch.
No.
So
I would call it maybe amusing.
It's not amusing, Ken.
There's amusement.
This is a film for idiots. You have to be an idiot to find this level of humor funny. It's predictable, it's daft, it comes at you a mile away. And there's nothing original here at all. It's like a Hunt for Red October. It's a Hunt for Red October for idiots.
It's like, when someone's like, "Oh, I'm wacky, I'm strange," and
there's a whole submarine full of them.
And it's just like it's not funny.
It's not funny.
Just
no.
to be, "Oh, I'm wacky, I'm off the wall." It's like really annoying.
This film actually gave me a headache.
Yeah.
I still have a headache from watching this. I'm not even kidding.
I think a lot of it too is they didn't use Kelsey Grammer for humor for pretty much the whole thing. He ends up playing kind of the straight face.
He did, yeah.
And the quote unquote times it was funny is just when he was like, "Oh, look at me, I'm weird." Like when they did the whole little pirate scene, and the golf scene at the beginning. It's like, oh, we're wacky.
Like I would not call Kelsey Grammer one of the great actors of our time by any stretch, but he's a competent actor, and he was absolutely wasted on this, as was literally every single person in this film. So that said, back to some semblance of a plot synopsis.
Well, the thing is, though, I guess the reason it's hard to get a plot synopsis for this film, and it might even be a fool's errand, is because the rest of the movie is a complete procedural 1, 2, 3, submarine. Another submarine is coming to try to catch them. So they do an unusual tactic so they can't sense them. Then they go to another place and they're about to get seen. So they do another unusual tactic, not be seen. And that is the entire film, is this submarine moving from one dangerous or unusual or strange thing to the next to try to avoid being detected.
That was beautiful. And yes, you're absolutely correct. So they have two incidents that so they're trying to infiltrate their own base, right? And blow up a dummy ship. Meanwhile, all these very powerful, fast-paced, nuclear-powered submarines are chasing them.
Well,
trying to detect them.
At first, it's just the one. It's just the ship he was on before. And the captain, and the other captain is just like, that ship is completely just normal. Like, they're operating like you would expect a naval vessel to operate. And, doing the things that they should be doing to try to track them down.
And at first, they're like, it's a diesel sub. There's no way because they don't know exactly what they're looking for. They just know they're looking for a ship and a submarine. And when they realize it's a diesel sub, they're like, oh, it can't be that. But just in case, let's take a closer look. And the first wacky thing that they do is, Captain Dodge decides, hey, let's, put some lights around the ship, and let's surface her. And then let's all sing. So they think that we're just a bunch of drunk guys on a fishing boat.
And it happened to be during a storm too. So it was like kind of hard to make out. It just looked like lights on a fishing boat or something like that.
So, so they managed to slip through that time, right? And then they reach their first target and light their flares to show that they made it. And then after that, they have this huge blockade that they have to get through, which they do by hiding under a huge commercial cargo carrier.
The other funny thing about these scenes is we also keep cutting back to the admirals. Like, we have this scene in the storm where they're trying to, they're camouflaging themselves.
Oh, no.
And then it cuts back to the admirals who are having dinner outside in the harbor. And the one goes like, oh, good thing that storm just passed.
I believe the actual quote was, oh, looks like the storm passed. Like, oh, shit, the storm just stopped. Meanwhile, they already have their food and they've been outside
and everything's
clearly
dry
for some time, and everything's dry as a bone.
They just had to tie in the fact that the last scene was raining.
And what was great about the scene outside with when they're on the superstructure of the submarine putting up their lights, everything's shot real close in. So all you see is just some poor bastard who just wants to work and film. Climbing up this thing, getting sprayed with studio water, with the studio lights flashing like it's thunder and lightning. It was a great way to mask the entire scene to make so it's essentially a bottle movie, kind of like a I'm going to just talk about Star Trek again. So on Star Trek, a bottle episode is an episode that basically just takes place on the ship, right? You use all the existing sets you have, and you can save money, and then that way you can put whatever you saved towards like a big effects episode later on, right? So like a good example is Where Silence Has Lease in episode 2, or season 2 episode of Next Gen, just takes place on the ship, and then a few later, you've got, anyway, just you have the Borg episode later on where you have all these like huge amazing sets. So back to the point. This is like a bottle movie because they use archival footage And I'm pretty sure that most of their footage of actual naval vessels in action was probably they just happened to film existing ships in the water.
It is
doing unrelated things.
It is worth noting that the main submarine is real. That it's set in is the they call it the Stingray in this movie, but it is a real submarine that's in harbor in I think San Francisco. So it is nice they have a real vessel to shoot, and so at least that's not embarrassing. Like, I think that was still my favorite part of the movie, was just seeing all the real ships, even if it was just archival footage, and stuff,
or just in the background,
or the ones in the harbor, like actually there.
It provides a sufficient amount of grounding to the whole thing. But
I just feel like it's so pointless to talk about the plot, because it's literally just, oh, they found us again. We're going to do something stupid and it's going to work. And they go down to the bottom of the ocean and then they crash to the ground. What's going to happen next?
Nothing.
Well, no, they had to, they set it up.
Oh, no.
Right. They set it up that the radar guy can hear everything. Like, he could hear everything everywhere.
And he tape records whale songs so we could try to learn it.
Yeah, so he can sing back to them or whatever. So of course, when they need a distraction, he ends up singing whale, so that the other submarine can hear it and thinks that they're a whale.
In a fantastically cringy moment in the film, where not the first time, but one of several times where I was actually embarrassed to be watching this. That was one of those times. Because he has all these cassette tapes, right? He's got like 20 cassette tapes in front of him that they previously established those are recordings of whales. And you naturally think like, oh, he'll pop one of those cassette tapes in and play it, and then it'll be genuine whale song, which would actually fool an actual, radar technician, right? Or sonar technician.
But see, Brian,
but they don't do that.
This is a comedy movie. So
it's a comedy movie.
It was funny that he was making whale noises and stuff. And that was funny. I didn't laugh, but it was funny to no one.
That was just hard to watch.
And that's how every scene was. Everything that was supposed to be funny. Rob Schneider was a huge offender with this, because, he's just yelling and screaming his head off.
He went to 11 immediately, and he just stayed there.
Yeah.
His character had no range. It never, he just completely bricked out and just went overboard and never pulled it back enough.
Luckily for us, he gets thrown off the ship.
Oh, that was good.
So the third act, he's not there.
I was really grateful for that, because so at one point, the admiral who has it out for, Dodge is going to restrict the area that he can operate in to make it difficult for him to actually achieve his objective, setting him up for failure. Dodge decides, we're going to go out of that anyway, because that's not really the original orders he was given anyhow. Right. And of course, the by the book, XO decides that, oh, hey, you're going AWOL and everything. And he tries to get the crew to mutiny against him. So naturally, what you would do in any normal naval situation is don a bunch of pirate gear and makeup and whatnot that you just happen to have on board with you, like you do when you're on a United States naval vessel. And then you make your executive officer walk the plank and drop him in a fishing boat. And then resume your movie.
Yeah.
Or, your mission. Moving on.
Yeah, there's just like all the stuff that happens, it's not funny, and it's so obvious. There's nothing surprising about any of it, and that's where the comedy would come. That's where it should come from.
There's no surprises here. So after that, they make their final run for Norfolk, which is where they were going to blow up the dummy ship. And long story short, they make it, and the admiral, who's a big jerk for no reason, gets his minor comeuppance and Kelsey Grammer gets the ship he always wanted, and he gets to keep his crappy ass crew because they've all apparently become polished turds, and he wants to keep them. And then also he gets a kiss from the one lady, the diving officer, Lauren Holly.
Which is really terrible. And like extra terrible because during the rest of the movie, they don't really have like a whole lot of connection, and he's kind of playing a mentor character to her. And then for them to go that way at the end was just like, okay, you wanted to have like a romantic connection, but like that was not appropriate. He was like coaching her, like he was on how to be a better officer.
He was doing an upskilling and kind of team building thing with her.
Like that was good,
and which was great. And then she comes to him in private to give him a kiss.
They had to ruin it.
They had to ruin it because you can't have in this film, I guess, the one female character. You can't have her actually, have her own worth and confidence and ability. Granted, she was a lot better than most of them, but she never really got the respect that she deserves.
Yeah.
She never really got the respect from the men.
It's true. Because she never really got recognized she kicked ass.
She never really got recognized for kicking ass. She had to rely way too much on the captain. And then when she comes in to give him the kiss like a little girl, it completely just destroyed that character. It's like you almost had something for a moment, and then you threw it away for because this movie has to have romance of some kind. Like, really? That's what this film needed? Was that kiss? Bullshit. All right, so I'm done talking about anything related to the actual storyline. So let's
it was a simple story.
It's a very simple story.
And once we set our ships on their mission, they just follow that formula till the very end.
All right, so let's pick apart some of these characters a little bit. So you have the two I guess you would call them pilots of the ship, the drivers, the helm and the con of the ship. So you have Dwayne Martin as Jackson and Jonathan Penner as Spots. One is a basketball player for the Navy, and he wants to go all NBA. The other guy's a gambler. And they have this stupid back and forth, like they're like almost frenemies, and it just doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's back and forth through the whole film, and it never, just when you think that maybe, they finally came to a place of genuine, like, friendship, no. And then you have the fat cook who makes food jokes, and his shining moment is when they're trying to be dead silent. Guess what? He's eating like old, beans that expired in 1966, and he farts. That was a big joke in this film, was the big fart joke. The people who wrote this film are assholes, Ken. And man. I mean, what else can you say about this? Like, it's badly written. Much of it is badly acted, especially in the case of like Rob Schneider. He's always shit anyway, so that's not a surprise.
I think it's a lot of missed opportunities too. I think with a slightly better script and just better casting, because the people they had in a couple of those spots are bad. Like Rob Schneider was just awful.
Yeah. What the hell were they thinking putting him in this film? Like, he doesn't. I don't know. I mean, you could argue, well, he doesn't look like Navy material, so that's why we put him in.
But like, it wasn't even. I think they needed to go further one way or the other. They needed to make either it even sillier, to go complete goofball. Like they didn't go that far.
They didn't go far enough. That's absolutely right.
They didn't go into like Naked Gun.
That would have been great.
Kind of ridiculousness.
Like if Leslie Nielsen should have been the captain of this ship. And the jokes about him, meeting his deadline for becoming an actual, captain of a vessel would make more sense.
Yeah.
And he could have played like the dead straight perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if you got like those guys to write this film, That would have been fun to watch. But instead, you got guys who wish they were those guys.
Yeah, and there's no nuance either to any of the characters. Like, they hardly had any progression. They hardly had any arc, really, other than that they succeeded in the end.
Oh God, what's the one guy? So Stepanek.
Yeah.
So he shows up and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna be insubordinate. You're gonna throw me off this boat, and then he's basically like the big lovable jerk of the film, and then he just stays that way.
I mean,
it's just whatever.
He becomes the hero kind of in the end, though, because he's the one that saves them from going down when the water's coming in.
Yeah, so what?
That's what I'm saying, though. Like that.
Yeah, it's just
he did something helpful.
Even when these characters start to shine, you still don't. You don't care.
Yeah.
I never cared about any of these characters. I never cared about Kelsey Grammer. I never cared about the people on this boat. I never cared about the other people on the other boats.
Yeah.
I didn't care about the admirals.
So I think there's a core to this movie. The idea of the movie isn't bad.
A comedy set on in a naval exercise.
Even just if you kept the base plot and then made the characters more interesting, made the interactions more interesting, and maybe a little tension or, whatever, or went the opposite way and everything was just completely off the rails, then it could have been an okay movie.
Oh man. So what was the cook's name? Buckman, right?
Yeah.
So the cook, Buckman, all right, he's just, he's the big fat schlub of the boat, and 90% of his scenes are just him standing in a doorway, just with the cigar in his mouth, just kind of being like, and you see it over and over again, just like you get the oh yeah, Dodge has a dick tattoo joke over and over again. The movie even ends with that. It begins with that and it ends with that. That is the bookmark to this, or not the bookmark. That's the
bookends.
The bookends to this film is that Kelsey Grammer's character has a dick tattoo.
Yep.
Like that's the thread that winds its way through the story. Like that's what they really want to leave you the impression with. Teehee.
Even the things that were supposed to be funny aren't memorable, really.
So let's talk about the good performances in this film.
Okay.
So Rip Torn as the lovable Admiral Winslow. He plays the understanding but stern, fatherly type to Kelsey Grammer, and by extension to us, the audience. We try to find solace in the occasional warm embrace that he provides in the random scenes in between the ocean going scenes. I thought he, for a 70-year-old man, he did fine. He was in Men in Black, and he kind of serves a similar function in that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just kind of what his role was in his latter-day films.
Right.
And that was good. And then
I thought William H. Macy was really good as just he played a naval commander going about his normal routine and, trying to figure out the solution, trying to hunt them down.
And another issue of miscasting, right? William H. Macy is a fucking phenomenal. I'm just going to swear in this one, okay? He is a fucking phenomenal actor. All right, he did Fargo the same year as this piece of shit.
Yeah.
Okay. His character in that film, because thanks in part to brilliant writing. I mean, he's desperate, he's pathetic, he's hilarious,
mm-hmm.
He's so many things, and in this, he's just a Navy guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he played the straight Navy guy like
he did it really well.
You would expect them to be. You know what I'm saying?
He did, and it's like, but why would you get William H. Macy to do that?
Had to be somebody.
Maybe back in 1996, before all that Fargo and everything, he was just an actor. Maybe I am looking at him through the lens of like 25 years of fantastic work, which is it's to his credit that he kept working after this film. I don't think Kelsey Grammer did many films after this. Certainly not in heavy prosthesis and makeup. Another good one is Bruce Dern as Admiral Graham. He's a solid actor. He portrays the emotionally compromised admiral quite well.
Yeah, he plays a good villain.
You know, he plays a good villain. A little over the top in the edge a little over the top at the end, but that's also, you know, again, what in this film didn't kind of go overboard in the wrong way. To get the pun there, overboard. Yeah. That's the level of the humor in this film. So there you go. And what was another good one? I thought, okay, so Lauren Holly did great as Lieutenant Lake.
Yeah, she did go with what she had to work with.
With what she had to work with, she did good. And, you know, for the most part, I mean, none of them were... It's really Rob Schneider that I just hate in this film.
Yeah.
He sticks out, you know, because the more I think about it, he's the one who sticks out the worst.
I mean, the rest of the cast didn't offend me. You know what I'm saying?
They didn't piss me off every time I saw their face.
I mean, the cook, his part sucked, but it wasn't really his fault. He didn't do anything bad like Rob Schneider did. You know what I'm saying?
Rob Schneider was actively annoying.
Right.
Now, I wonder if you took him out of it. See, here's the thing. You should have taken out here's what we should have done. Remove Rob Schneider from the film. Make William H. Macy the XO, which would have been a much better fit. Because early in the film, like, William H. Macy is the captain of Kelsey Grammer's boat, and that doesn't feel right at all. It just doesn't. That dynamic seems odd to me. But if you had made William H. Macy the XO, the kind of, you know, wormy, prissy, you know, aggravated XO, I think that would have worked a lot better. And then just pick any old random, like, square jaw dude for the captain of that ship. And that would have been fine. See, that would have been a much better choice. Because William H. Macy could have made that an acceptable role. Because the way that Rob Schneider portrays it, it's like he's acting for 6-year-olds. Like, that's his audience.
Yeah.
Is a 6-year-old who's easily amused and laughs and points at the TV and looks up at their parents and then laughs some more and keeps pointing.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a missed opportunity that they didn't have a whole lot of relationship between the two captains. They had, you know, they had served together on the ship, but then they didn't really have a relationship beyond that. You know, the first captain thought he wasn't that great and wasn't that reliable, but there's really no tension between them as far as the exercise goes.
Yeah, they didn't.
They used the admiral for that at the end,
which was really cheap.
Yeah.
Because it really, you know, and it also really accentuated how, you know, the admiral was really compromised by his own feelings in this matter. And they never really, aside from the fact he doesn't like the guy's style, and, you know, that maybe he's a little bit of a screw up, they don't really give you enough ammunition to justify his extreme near hatred of this man. It doesn't feel warranted to me.
Yeah.
It never feels genuine. Let's talk about some of the most useless or extraneous characters. Should I just start reading off the cast list on IMDb?
I think it's a pointless exercise. It's no one was really important. The end. It's like you could have interchanged any of the crew members of the ship. And it's story-wise, I mean, it didn't really...
For the most part. You still need the diving officer to do that particular thing. So
if she hadn't had the romance angle, she would have been the legitimate arc of the crew. You know, her... I guess everyone kind of got their act together eventually, but...
Eventually, but by the time they do, you don't care. Because you gave up in the first 35 minutes.
There's no way to fix this.
It's worth noting too. So the director of this film, David S. Ward, he also directed Major League in '89, and he did a couple of other films, but he did nothing after this film. This film was the nail in his directing coffin. So he said this movie made back its budget. What was the budget on this?
It was like 30-something million.
30 million?
34 or something.
34 million. So it wasn't a critical or commercial disaster, but it was not anywhere near a success.
I mean, it wouldn't have made their marketing back. It was 31 million was the budget, and 37 was the box office.
So they grossed $6 million more than what they spent to make it.
Right.
Wow.
But with advertising, you got to figure there's no way.
So they may have broken even. Keep in mind too, this was like 1996. A few TV spots, a few radio spots, a couple things in some newspapers. It wouldn't have needed too much because I remember when this movie came out, and I saw a few ads on the TV, and that was it.
Yeah.
It came and it went.
Yeah.
So it's not like they spent a huge amount on the marketing.
I think Kelsey Grammer was misused. That's the main offense of this movie, even with all the other, problems that it has. If his role would have been really good, it could have overshadowed a whole lot in this movie. But, they didn't use any kind of like good comedic timing, which he has.
All of the things that he's known for and have been celebrated for are not present in this film. Like they cast him because he would have been in his third season or fourth season, he would have been within the first few seasons of Frasier, which was a popular show pretty much from the get-go, based on a popular character from Cheers. So, I mean, he'd been riding a wave of quite a few years, and they were trying to capitalize on that with this comedy. And all I can guess is that certain people were just like, oh, so-and-so signed on to that? Well, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, oh, that director directed Major League. Oh, that was a good movie. That made money.
Right.
So, I mean, I can see how some of them made that decision to get into this film. And I'm just kind of wondering, at what point did they all know it was just going to go very, very badly? So I think it's time now to talk about the Village People song at the end credits.
Yes, the Village People show up and sing In the Navy on the submarine on top of it.
Intercut with shots of Kelsey Grammer's character looking into the Periscope and seeing them and being like, oh, wow. And just stupid shenanigans going on the ship and in the background. And I didn't think they could end the movie any worse. I didn't think the movie could get worse once it was over. But they found a way.
It did.
They found a way. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, when Kelsey Grammer went to the premiere for this, what was he thinking when he saw that? Was he proud of his work in this film? Was he proud to be associated with this film?
I don't know.
Did he go home and cry? Did he drink himself into a stupor? I mean,
went back to his TV show and just
kept making
moved
money
on with his life.
I guess by the time the film was done, he'd already cashed that check, huh?
At least he could just keep going. These poor other people who,
oh man,
probably never did anything else.
A lot of them did not.
Yeah.
A lot of them didn't. Most of them didn't. Like your cook, Buckman. His big claim to fame before this was being the Santa Claus, quote unquote, in Home Alone. So he got to be, and then he was in another film where he played Man in Hallway. Was the name of his character. So in this, he's basically Man in Doorway, and then he was Santa, and then he was also Man in Hallway. And that's just a shame.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I got nothing else to say about this. So we're going to go ahead and just cut this one a little bit short.
I guess we could talk about, there was some music in it. It wasn't like, I feel like this would have been a good movie to use a soundtrack of period music.
Music definitely would have.
Because I guess that would have screwed it up, though, because they were trying to be quiet most of the time. But it would have been interesting if they...
I don't remember any of the music in this film, except for when they sang Louie Louie, and then the YMCA song at the end.
They had some generic movie score.
Yeah, it did not stand out at all. It was completely unmemorable, because I can't recall a single scene where I was like, oh, yeah.
It was like orchestral.
It was, yeah, but orchestral, but so just
in the background.
Ineffectual.
Yeah.
Man. If they had had like some good like James Horner shit, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Something like swelling and epic, which would, accentuate the absurdity of some of the scenes, perhaps.
Yeah. They would have had to have better comedy for it to really work, though.
Yeah.
But it could have helped.
I mean, you know, you have bloodless, emotionless music. You have the scenes where you're supposed to be on the edge of your seat, like when they're resting on the ocean floor, trying not to make a peep. You know, nothing, no tension there at all. When the ship is finally in some danger, actual danger, there's no danger.
Yeah.
You know, there's supposed to be comedy. There's no comedy. And that's our review of this film.
Yeah.
I have absolutely nothing else to say about it.
You won't find anything worth seeing here.
This is not okay. So
the best part of this movie, I still contend, is the submarines themselves and the other military ships that are shown in this film.
And if you like those things, you can watch almost anything else with those things in them and find a more rewarding experience.
You could go to the same YouTube box you go to look for this movie and instead look for archival footage of submarines, and that'll be much more fulfilling.
Watch a documentary on submarines. I mean, there's so many other cool things you could do. I just cannot recommend this film at all. Not even as a one-timer.
No. Not
even just to be like, oh yeah, I saw that once. No, this is not one. Don't do it.
This is not a badge of honor.
It's not a badge of honor. This is not even a rent it and forget it.
Just forget it.
It shouldn't have been made in the first place.
And on that cheery note,
if you enjoyed our segment today, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or find us on Patreon or Apple Music or any of the other spots we're hosted at. We have new episodes every single Wednesday. And once again, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Complimentary Cinema Podcast here on the O&M Stockroom with
Ken O'Malley
and Brian McGarry. And we'll see you next week with an all-new episode.